My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 72 years old, and what I'm about to tell you is the most heartbreaking and ultimately hopeful story of my life. It's the story of how my son abandoned his mother when she needed him most, and how a family secret buried for decades would change everything. It started 18 months ago when my wife Sarah began experiencing strange symptoms. At first it was just fatigue and occasional numbness in her hands. Sarah, my partner of 45 years, the woman who had raised our 3 children and worked as a dedicated teacher for 30 years, tried to brush it off. "Robert, I'm just getting older," she'd say when I'd find her struggling to hold a coffee cup or stumbling slightly while walking. "It's probably arthritis." But I knew something was wrong. After 45 years of marriage, you develop an instinct about your spouse. Sarah was changing, and not just from normal aging. The diagnosis came on a cold Tuesday morning in February: multiple sclerosis, progressive form. The neurologist, Dr. Martinez, delivered the news with professional compassion, but the words hit like a sledgehammer. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell. The tests confirm that you have primary progressive multiple sclerosis. This form of MS typically involves a gradual worsening of symptoms from the onset, without the relapses and remissions seen in other forms." Sarah took my hand and I felt it trembling. "What does that mean for our future, doctor?" "It means we'll need to focus on managing symptoms and maintaining quality of life for as long as possible. You'll need increasing levels of support as the disease progresses." When we got home, I called our 3 children: Michael, 42, a successful corporate lawyer in Chicago; Jennifer, 39, a marketing executive in Denver; and David, 35, a software engineer in Seattle. "Dad, I'm so sorry about Mom," Michael said when I told him. "How can we help?" I explained that Sarah would need increasing care as her mobility declined, that we'd need to modify the house, and that she'd eventually need full-time assistance. "Of course, Dad. We'll figure this out together." But as the months passed and Sarah's condition deteriorated, figuring it out together proved to be more complicated than any of us had imagined. Sarah went from using a cane to needing a walker, then a wheelchair. Simple tasks like buttoning her clothes or cutting her food became impossible. I did my best to care for her, but at 72, I was struggling with my own health issues. "Robert," Sarah said to me one evening as I helped her into bed, "I don't want to be a burden on you or the children." "Sarah, you're not a burden. You're my wife. This is what in sickness and in health means." But I could see the fear in her eyes. She was losing her independence, her dignity, and slowly, pieces of herself. That's when I called another family meeting. 6 months after Sarah's diagnosis, I gathered our children for what I hoped would be a productive conversation about their mother's care. What I got instead was a painful revelation about who they had become. We met at our family home in suburban Portland, Oregon, the same house where they had grown up, where Sarah had packed their lunches and helped with homework for years. Michael arrived first, checking his phone constantly. "Dad, I can only stay for an hour. I have a conference call with Tokyo." Jennifer came with her laptop, setting up what looked like a mobile office on our kitchen table. "Sorry, Dad, but I'm launching a new campaign next week. I might need to step out for calls." David was the last to arrive and the most honest about his priorities. "Dad, I want to help Mom, but I need you to understand my limitations. I just got promoted. I'm working 60 hours a week, and I'm trying to save for a house." I looked at these 3 successful adults, my children, and wondered where the compassionate kids Sarah and I had raised had gone. "Your mother is getting worse," I began. "She needs help with almost everything now. The doctor says she'll soon need 24-hour care." "Dad, have you looked into assisted living facilities?" Michael asked, not looking up from his phone. "Assisted living? Michael, she's your mother." "I know that, Dad, but be realistic. You can't care for her properly, and none of us has the medical training she needs." Jennifer jumped in, closing her laptop for the first time since arriving. "Michael's right, Dad. There are excellent facilities that specialize in MS care. Mom would get professional attention. What Mom needs is her family." "Dad," David said, with the patience one uses with a confused child. We all have lives. I live 3 states away. Michael travels constantly. Jennifer has 3 kids of her own. So your mother should just disappear into a facility? It's not disappearing, Michael said firmly. It's getting proper care. I could see this wasn't a discussion about Sarah's needs. This was a negotiation about their convenience. What if we hired a full-time nurse? I suggested. Dad, do you have any idea what that costs? Jennifer asked. We're talking about $150,000 a year minimum. None of us can afford that. I can handle the cost. Michael looked up from his phone for the first time. Dad, you're on Social Security and a teacher's pension. You can't afford professional care. They had no idea what they were talking about, but I wasn't ready to reveal the truth yet. Let me ask you something, I said. If one of your children developed MS, would you put them in a facility? That's different, Dad, Jennifer said. They're children. Mom has lived her life. Lived her life? She's 68 years old. Dad, be honest, David said. Mom doesn't even recognize us half the time now. The MS is affecting her cognitive function. She's not really herself anymore. That was the moment my heart broke completely. My son had just declared that his mother, the woman who had sacrificed her career opportunities to be available for every soccer game, every school play, every moment they needed her, was no longer worth caring for because she wasn't useful to them anymore. David, your mother gave you life. She gave you 35 years of unconditional love. And now that she needs you, you're ready to warehouse her somewhere because she's inconvenient. Dad, that's not fair. What's not fair is 3 healthy, successful adults abandoning their mother because caring for her doesn't fit into their schedules. The meeting ended with them agreeing to research options for Sarah's care. But I knew what that meant. They were going to find the nicest facility they could afford and convince themselves they were doing the right thing. That night, as I helped Sarah prepare for bed, she asked me a question that broke my heart. Robert, the children think I should go away, don't they? I couldn't lie to her. They think a care facility might be better for you. Do you think I should go? I sat on the edge of our bed, the same bed where we'd conceived our children, where we'd whispered hopes and dreams for decades. Sarah, I think our children have forgotten what love really means, but I haven't, and I'm going to remind them. For the next 2 weeks, I watched my children coordinate their campaign to move Sarah to a care facility. They had researched the best MS care centers in Oregon, created spreadsheets comparing costs and services, and even scheduled tours. Michael called me with updates that sounded like business reports. Dad, Sunset Manor has excellent MS specialists, and they have an opening next month. Jennifer sent me brochures. Dad, look at these amenities. Mom would have activities, physical therapy, social interaction with other patients. David was the most direct. Dad, I found a place that takes Medicare plus a reasonable monthly supplement. It's really the most practical solution. Practical. That's what my son's mother had become to him. A practical problem requiring a practical solution. But none of them knew the truth about their father. None of them knew the secret I'd been keeping for over 40 years. The secret started in 1978, 3 years after Sarah and I got married. I was working as a mechanic at a small garage, and Sarah was teaching elementary school. We were young, in love, and broke. One day, an old man named Henry Kowalski brought his 1965 Mustang to our shop. It needed extensive work, but Henry was a widower on a fixed income who couldn't afford the repairs. Son, he told me, this car is all I have left of my late wife. We bought it together for our 25th anniversary. I know I can't pay much, but could you maybe work something out? I spent my own money on parts and fixed his car for free. Henry was so grateful that he kept coming back, not just for car work, but to talk. He had no family, and I think he was lonely. When Henry died 2 years later, I got a call from his lawyer that changed my life forever. Mr. Mitchell, I have some surprising news. Mr. Kowalski has left you something in his will. What Henry left me was a stock portfolio he'd been building since the 1940s. Conservative investments, blue-chip companies, steady growth over decades. The portfolio was worth $180,000 in 1980, a fortune to a young mechanic. But here's the thing. I never told Sarah the full extent of what Henry had left us. I told her he'd left us enough to pay off our student loans and buy a modest house. I didn't tell her about the investments that I continued to manage and grow for the next 40 years. Why? Because I wanted our children to grow up understanding the value of work, the importance of family, and the meaning of sacrifice. I wanted them to see their parents as people who succeeded through effort and love, not through windfall inheritance. Sarah and I lived modestly. I continued working as a mechanic until I was 55, then used some of the investment income to go back to school and become a high school shop teacher. Sarah continued teaching elementary school because she loved it. But behind the scenes, I was managing a portfolio that had grown to over $3.2 million. Our children had no idea. They saw their parents as a retired mechanic-turned-teacher and an elementary school teacher living on pensions and Social Security, which is why they assumed I couldn't afford professional care for Sarah. They had no idea that their father could afford the best medical care money could buy, that I could hire a team of specialists, that I could transform our home into a medical facility if necessary. But I wasn't going to reveal that secret until they proved they deserved to know it. I wanted to see if my children would care for their mother out of love, not out of obligation, backed by financial resources. And so far, they were failing that test spectacularly. The decision point came when Michael called me with an ultimatum. "Dad, we've made arrangements with Willowbrook Care Center. They have a bed available, and we've put down a deposit. Mum needs to be admitted next Friday." "Michael, I told you I don't want your mother in a facility." "Dad, you don't have a choice. None of us can provide the care she needs, and you can't afford private nursing. This is the only realistic option." "What if I told you money wasn't an issue?" "Dad, please don't go into debt trying to prove a point. We've made the decision. Mom goes to Willowbrook on Friday." That's when I knew it was time to reveal the truth. I told my children I wanted one more family meeting before Sarah was moved to the care facility. This time, I had a different agenda. They arrived Sunday morning, probably expecting me to accept defeat gracefully. Michael brought paperwork for Willowbrook. Jennifer had printed out visiting schedules. David carried a tablet with transition planning documents. Sarah was having a good day, cognitively speaking, so I asked her to join us in the living room. "Children," I began, "before your mother goes anywhere, I want to make you an offer." "Dad, we've already discussed this," Michael interrupted. "Hear me out. I want each of you to take care of your mother for 1 month, 1 full month in your own homes. If after all 3 of you have experienced what it means to care for her, you still think a facility is best, I'll agree to it." The silence that followed was deafening. "Dad, that's impossible," Jennifer said. "I have 3 kids, a full-time job. Your mother had 3 kids and a full-time job when she took care of all of you. That's different." "How is it different?" David jumped in. "Dad, we don't have the medical training. What if something happens? What if something happened when you were children and got sick? Did your mother have medical training?" "Dad, you're being unreasonable," Michael said. "I'm being a husband who loves his wife, and I'm asking my children to show the same love their mother showed them. Dad, even if we wanted to do this, the logistics are impossible. I travel for work. Jennifer has her family responsibilities. David lives across the country. Then figure it out. The same way your mother figured out how to care for 3 children while working full-time and supporting my career." Sarah, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "Robert, maybe the children are right. Maybe I would be better off in a place with professional care. Sarah, do you want to go to a facility?" She looked at our 3 children, then back at me. "I want to be wherever I'm wanted." The words hung in the air like an indictment. "You're wanted here?" I said firmly. "By me. The question is whether your children want you." "Dad, of course we want Mom," Jennifer said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then prove it. 1 month each. Michael, you go first. Dad, I can't. Can't or won't? It's not that simple. It is that simple. Your mother cared for you when you couldn't feed yourself, couldn't walk, couldn't control your bodily functions. Now she needs the same care. Are you going to give it to her or not? Michael looked at his siblings, clearly hoping one of them would object first. Dad, what if we hire professional help, but Mum stays in our homes? No nurses, no aides, just you, caring for your mother the way she cared for you. But Dad, we don't know how to manage her medications, her physical therapy. Learn. The way your mother learned everything she needed to know to raise you. David finally spoke up. Dad, what you're asking is unrealistic in today's world. We have careers, mortgages, responsibilities, and your mother didn't? David, your mother gave up a chance to be a principal because it would have meant traveling and being away from you kids. She turned down opportunities because her family came first. Times were different then. Love wasn't different. Responsibility wasn't different. Family wasn't different. I stood up and walked to our mantelpiece, where dozens of family photos chronicled our children's lives. Birthday parties, graduations, soccer games, dance recitals, all events where Sarah had been present, supportive, involved. Look at these pictures. Count how many times your mother is in them, how many events she attended, how many times she put your needs before her own. I turned back to face them. Now I'm asking you to put her needs before your own for 3 months total, divided among 3 people, and you're telling me it's impossible. Sarah started crying quietly. I knew she understood what this conversation really meant, that her children saw caring for her as an unbearable burden. Don't cry, Mom, Jennifer said, kneeling beside Sarah's wheelchair. We're going to take care of you. It's just complicated. No, Sarah said with more strength than I'd heard from her in months. It's not complicated. It's either love or it's not. And I can see what this is. Michael stood up, clearly frustrated. Mom, that's not fair. We do love you. But we're trying to be practical about what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? Or best for you? The question came from Sarah, and it silenced the room. Mom, David started. Answer the question, David. Is sending me away best for me or best for you? My youngest son, the one Sarah had nursed through pneumonia for 2 weeks when he was 8, couldn't answer his mother's question. That's when I knew it was time to reveal the secret that would change everything. Before we make any final decisions, I said, there's something you need to know about your father. I went to our bedroom and returned with a file folder I'd been keeping in our safe for 40 years. Dad, what's that? Jennifer asked. The truth about our family's financial situation. I opened the folder and placed the documents on our coffee table. Investment statements, portfolio summaries, bank account balances. Dad, what is all this? Michael asked, picking up a Schwab statement. Your father isn't the poor retired teacher you think he is. I pulled out the latest investment summary and handed it to Michael. Our current liquid assets total $3.2 million. The silence that followed was absolute. Dad, that can't be right, David said, taking the document from Michael. This says you have over $3 million. It's correct. But how? You were a mechanic, then a teacher. Mom was an elementary school teacher. How could you possibly... I told them about Henry Kowalski, about the inheritance, about 40 years of careful investing while living below our means. Why didn't you ever tell us? Jennifer asked. Because I wanted you to understand the value of work, the importance of family, and the meaning of responsibility. I wanted you to succeed based on your own efforts, not because you expected an inheritance. Michael was studying the documents with his lawyer's eye for detail. Dad, if this is real, you could afford the best care money can buy. Private nurses around the clock, specialists, equipment. I could. But money isn't what your mother needs most. Then what does she need? She needs to know that her children love her enough to sacrifice for her the way she sacrificed for you. David was shaking his head in disbelief. Dad, you let us think you were struggling financially. You let us worry about how to pay for Mom's care. Because I wanted to see what you would do when you thought money was tight. Would you find a way to care for your mother, or would you find a way to get rid of the problem? That's not what we were doing, isn't it? You were about to put your mother in a facility because it was convenient for you, not because it was best for her. Sarah had been quietly watching this revelation unfold. Now she spoke. Robert, does this mean we can afford for me to stay home? Sarah, we can afford anything you need. The question is whether our children want to be part of providing it. I turned to face Michael, Jennifer, and David. Here's what's going to happen. If you're willing to take care of your mother, really take care of her, not just supervise strangers caring for her, then you'll be part of this family's future. When your mother and I are gone, you'll inherit everything we've built. And if we're not willing, Michael asked, then you've made your choice. The money will go to MS research and organizations that care for people whose families have abandoned them. Dad, that's blackmail, David said. No, David, that's consequences. For 40 years I've watched you grow into successful adults. Now I'm watching to see if you've grown into good human beings. Jennifer was crying. Dad, it's not that we don't love Mom. It's that we don't know how to care for someone with MS. Then learn. The way your mother learned how to care for premature twins when you and David were born, the way she learned how to help Michael with his dyslexia, the way she learned everything else she needed to know because her family needed her to learn it. I sat back down next to Sarah and took her hand. Your mother has maybe 5 good years left, if we're lucky. You can spend those years visiting her in a facility for an hour every few weeks, or you can spend them being her family. But Dad, Michael said, even with money, caring for someone with progressive MS is incredibly difficult. Yes, it is. That's why it's called sacrifice. That's why it means something. Sarah squeezed my hand. In that small gesture, I felt 45 years of partnership, of facing everything together. Children, Sarah said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. Your father is giving you a choice. You can choose love or you can choose convenience. But understand that this choice will define who you are for the rest of your lives. Michael was the first to accept the challenge, partly because he was the oldest and felt obligated to set an example, and partly because his lawyer's mind saw this as a negotiation he could win. Dad, I'll take care of Mom for a month, but I want to do it properly. I'm hiring the best equipment, getting consultations with specialists, setting up everything she needs. No, Michael. You're going to care for her the way she cared for you, with your own hands, your own time, your own heart. Sarah moved into Michael's upscale condo in downtown Chicago. His wife Diana was not thrilled with the arrangement. Robert, I hope you understand that this is very disruptive to our routine, Diana told me when I helped get Sarah settled. Diana, when Michael was 6 months old and had colic, he cried for 4 hours every night for 3 months. Sarah never complained about the disruption to her routine. Michael had converted his home office into a temporary bedroom for Sarah, complete with a hospital bed he'd purchased. His approach to caring for his mother was initially very clinical. I've created a medication schedule, he told me during my first visit. Physical therapy at 10 a.m., meals at precise times, rest periods built in. Michael, your mother isn't a client. She's your mother. I know that, Dad. I'm just trying to be efficient, but efficiency wasn't what Sarah needed. She needed connection, patience, and love. The first week was a disaster. Michael tried to maintain his normal work schedule while caring for Sarah. He'd set her up with activities in the morning, work from home during the day, and check on her periodically. Michael treats me like a project he's managing, Sarah told me when I called. He's very kind, but it's like he's caring for a stranger. The turning point came during the second week. Michael had an important client meeting that ran late, and he came home to find Sarah had fallen trying to get to the bathroom. She wasn't seriously hurt, but she was shaken and embarrassed. "Mom, why didn't you call for help?" Michael asked as he helped her back to bed. "I called for you for an hour. You weren't here." That night, Michael called me in tears. "Dad, I almost let Mom get seriously hurt because I was in a meeting about a corporate merger. What kind of son does that make me?" It makes you a son who's learning what caregiving really means. I don't know how to do this, Dad. I don't know how to balance everything. Michael, when you were learning to walk, you fell down hundreds of times. Did your mother give up on you? No. Did she hire someone else to teach you? No, she kept helping me until I could do it myself. That's what love looks like, Michael. It looks like not giving up, even when it's hard. The third week was different. Michael took a leave of absence from work. He cancelled his business trips and cleared his schedule. Dad, I realized something, he told me. I've been treating Mom's care like another job responsibility, but it's not a job. It's the most important thing I'll ever do. He learned to recognize the early signs of Sarah's fatigue, to help her with her physical therapy exercises, to simply sit and talk with her when the MS symptoms made her feel isolated. Michael reads to me every evening now, Sarah told me during one of my visits, just like I used to read to him. How does that make you feel? Like his mother again, instead of his burden. By the fourth week, Michael had transformed. He was patient with Sarah's physical limitations, creative in finding activities she could still enjoy, and present in a way he hadn't been since childhood. Dad, he told me at the end of his month, I understand now why you wanted us to do this. What do you understand? I understand that Mom didn't stop being my mother when she got sick. I stopped being her son when I decided her care was inconvenient. And now I know that caring for her isn't a burden. It's a privilege. She cared for me when I couldn't care for myself, and now I get to return that gift. When it was time for Sarah to go to Jennifer's house, Michael didn't want to let her go. Dad, could we extend this arrangement? I feel like I'm just starting to understand how to really help her. Michael, you'll have more opportunities, but first, your sister needs to learn what you've learned. As I drove Sarah to Jennifer's house in Denver, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Robert, Michael is different now. How so? He sees me again. For a while, when he looked at me, all he saw was my disease. Now he sees his mother. How do you feel about that? I feel like maybe this trial of yours isn't just about testing our children. Maybe it's about giving them the chance to discover parts of themselves they had forgotten. Jennifer's approach to caring for Sarah was completely different from Michael's. Where Michael had been clinical and organized, Jennifer was emotional and chaotic. Mom, I'm so sorry we even considered putting you in a facility, Jennifer said, as she settled Sarah into her guest room. I can't believe we were so selfish. Jennifer's house in Denver was busy with 3 children, ages 12, 9, and 6, and her husband Mark worked long hours as an engineer. Adding Sarah to this mix was like adding another child, except this child needed constant attention and assistance. Dad, I don't know how I'm going to manage everything, Jennifer confessed to me during my first visit. Emma has soccer practice, Jake has piano lessons, Sophie needs help with homework, and your mother needs to feel like part of a family, not like an additional burden on your schedule. I'm not saying she's a burden, I'm just saying, Jennifer, when you were 9 years old and broke your leg, your mother rearranged her entire life for 6 weeks. She drove you to school, carried your books, sat with you during lunch because you couldn't navigate the cafeteria with crutches. Did she complain about the inconvenience? No, but that's different. How is it different? Jennifer couldn't answer that question because there was no good answer. The first week was overwhelming. Jennifer tried to maintain her normal family routine while caring for Sarah. She'd help Sarah get dressed in the morning, then rush around getting the kids ready for school. She'd set Sarah up in the living room with activities, then spend the day running errands and managing her children's schedules. Mom seems lonely, Emma, Jennifer's 12-year-old, observed one evening. What do you mean, sweetheart? She sits by herself all day while we're at school. When we come home, she lights up like she's been waiting for us. But then you're so busy with our stuff that you don't really talk to her. Out of the mouths of babes. That observation from Emma changed Jennifer's perspective. She began including Sarah in the family's daily activities instead of treating her care as a separate responsibility. Mom, would you like to help Emma with her homework? Jennifer asked one afternoon. I don't know if I can help with 12-year-old math anymore, Sarah said. "Grandma, you don't have to help with math," Emma said. "You could just sit with me while I do it. Sometimes it's nice to have company." Gradually, Sarah became integrated into the family's routine. She helped fold laundry, as much as her limited hand function allowed, listened to the children practice piano, and became Jake's enthusiastic audience for his magic tricks. "Jennifer," I observed during my second week visiting, "your mother seems happier here than she has in months. She loves being around the grandchildren. They don't see her disease, they just see Grandma." How do you feel about that? I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I was ready to put her in a facility, and I feel guilty that it took your ultimatum to make me see that she needs family, not just professional care. The middle 2 weeks of Jennifer's month were transformative. Instead of trying to maintain her previous schedule while adding Sarah's care, Jennifer reorganized their family life to include Sarah as a central part. "Mom helps me make dinner now," Jennifer told me. "She can't do much, but she can stir things and keep me company while I cook. The kids love having Grandma in the kitchen with us." "And your other activities?" "We've made some changes. Instead of running separate errands, I take Mom with me. Instead of the kids having activities every night, we have family time where Mom can participate." "Do the children mind the changes?" "Dad, the kids love having Grandma here. Sophie crawls into Mom's lap every evening to watch TV. Jake shows her his video games, even though she doesn't understand them. Emma reads to her the way Mom used to read to us." But the most significant change was in Jennifer herself. She had always been the most emotional of our 3 children, but she had channeled that emotion into business success rather than family connection. "Dad, I've been thinking about something," Jennifer said during my 3rd week visiting. "What's that?" "I've been so focused on giving my kids opportunities, music lessons, sports, advanced classes, that I forgot to teach them about caring for family. Watching them with Mom has shown me that the most important lessons aren't about achievement, they're about love." The 4th week brought an unexpected challenge. Sarah had a particularly bad MS episode, increased weakness, cognitive confusion, and difficulty swallowing. Instead of panicking and calling for professional help, Jennifer calmly managed the crisis. I called her doctor, adjusted her medications as instructed, and stayed with her until she stabilized, Jennifer told me. "The kids helped by being quiet and bringing Mom water and blankets." "How did you know what to do?" "I remembered when Emma had pneumonia 2 years ago. I didn't sleep for 3 days, monitoring her breathing, giving her medications, keeping her hydrated. I realized that caring for Mom required the same instincts, just different knowledge. And how do you feel about that?" "I feel like Mom taught me how to be a caregiver when I became a mother. Now I get to use those skills to care for her." By the end of Jennifer's month, the entire family had adjusted to include Sarah as a beloved member of their household. "Dad, I don't want Mom to leave," Sophie, Jennifer's 6-year-old, told me. "Grandma's the best part of our family now. Sophie, Grandma has to go stay with Uncle David for a while, but she'll come back to visit. Promise?" "I promise." When it was time for Sarah to go to David's house in Seattle, Jennifer was in tears. "Dad, this month has changed everything for me. I thought caring for Mom would be about sacrifice, giving up time and energy for her needs, but it's been the opposite. Taking care of her has made our family closer, made my children more compassionate, made me remember what's really important." "What's really important, Jennifer?" "Being present for the people you love, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard." David was the most reluctant of my children to take on Sarah's care. As the youngest, he had always been somewhat self-centered, and his career in tech had only reinforced his focus on efficiency and problem-solving rather than emotional connection. "Dad, I want to be honest with you," David said when I brought Sarah to his Seattle apartment. "I'm terrified. Michael and Jennifer both said this month changed their lives, but I don't know if I'm capable of that kind of change." "David, your mother didn't know if she was capable of raising 3 children when you were born. She learned by doing. But what if I mess up? What if I can't handle her medical needs? Then you'll learn to handle them. The same way she learned to handle your medical needs when you were born with breathing problems and spent the first month of your life in the NICU." David's apartment was a minimalist space designed for a single person with a busy career. Everything was optimized for efficiency: smart home technology, meal delivery services, automated systems for managing his schedule. "I'm going to need to make some adjustments," David said, looking around his space. "This place isn't exactly set up for caregiving. David, your mother raised 3 children in a 2-bedroom apartment when you were babies. She didn't have smart home technology or meal delivery services. She had love and determination." The first week was a steep learning curve for David. He had to learn Sarah's medication schedule, her physical therapy routine, and how to help her with basic daily activities. But more challenging than the logistics was learning how to simply be present with his mother. "Dad, I keep wanting to fix her," David confessed during our first phone call. "When she struggles with something, my instinct is to find a technological solution or optimize the process. But she doesn't need fixing. She needs companionship." What have you learned from that? That sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is just be with them. Not solve their problems, not improve their situation, just be present. David approached caring for Sarah with the same methodical intelligence he brought to his engineering work, but he gradually learned that caregiving couldn't be optimized like code. "Mom asked me to tell her about my day," David told me during my first visit. "Not just the highlights or the problems to solve, but everything. She wanted to know what I had for lunch, who I talked to, what made me laugh. I realized I haven't really talked to anyone like that in years." How did that feel? Lonely. I realized that I've been living a very efficient but very isolated life. Having Mom here has made me understand the difference between being productive and being connected. The second week brought David face to face with the realities of his mother's condition. Sarah had a bad day, where her cognitive symptoms were more pronounced. She was confused about where she was and didn't recognize David for several hours. "Dad, it was terrifying," David called me that evening. "She kept asking for her son David, not understanding that I was David. She thought I was a stranger taking care of her." How did you handle it? At first, I kept trying to convince her that I was David, but that just made her more agitated. Finally, I stopped trying to correct her and just focused on making her comfortable. I said, "Your son David loves you very much and wants you to be safe and happy." That seemed to calm her down. What did you learn from that experience? I learned that sometimes love means accepting someone where they are, not insisting they be where you need them to be. By the third week, David had completely restructured his life around Sarah's needs. He was working from home full-time, had rearranged his apartment to be more accessible, and had learned to find joy in small moments with his mother. "Mom and I have been watching old family videos," David told me. "She remembers things from when we were kids that I had completely forgotten. She told me about the time I built a robot out of cardboard boxes when I was 8, and how proud she was that I was so creative. Do you remember that?" Not until she reminded me. But watching her face light up when she talks about those memories. "Dad, I understand now why you wanted us to do this. She's not just our sick mother who needs care. She's the keeper of our family history, the person who loved us before we even knew who we were." The fourth week brought an unexpected revelation. Sarah was having another cognitive episode, and in her confusion, she started talking about things that had happened decades ago, as if they were happening now. "David, you need to be careful around your father," she told him one afternoon. "He's been getting these mysterious phone calls and letters. I think he's having an affair." David called me immediately. "Dad, Mom is talking about you having an affair. She seems genuinely distressed about it." I was quiet for a long moment. "David, your mother isn't talking about an affair. She's remembering something that happened 40 years ago, when I was managing Henry Kowalski's investments. She used to worry about all the financial documents and phone calls because I couldn't tell her the whole truth about what I was doing." "You mean the secret about the money?" "Yes. Your mother lived with that uncertainty for years, wondering why I was getting calls from investment companies and receiving financial documents I couldn't fully explain." "Dad, you mean Mom worried for years that you were keeping secrets from her? Until I finally told her the truth about the inheritance and what I was doing with it. But those years of uncertainty were hard on her. She loved me enough to trust me, even when she didn't understand what was happening. That conversation opened David's eyes to another dimension of our family history, the sacrifices and trust that had built our marriage over 4 decades. Dad, when I think about how Mom trusted you for years without understanding what you were doing, and now you're asking us to trust you about caring for her, I think I understand the parallel. What parallel is that, David? Love requires trust. Even when you don't understand everything, Mom trusted you to make good decisions about money, even when she was worried. Now you're asking us to trust that caring for her is the right thing to do, even when it's hard. By the end of his month, David had undergone the most dramatic transformation of all 3 children. The focused, somewhat selfish young man who had moved Sarah to Seattle had become a patient, thoughtful caregiver who understood the deeper meaning of family responsibility. "Dad, I need to tell you something," David said when I came to pick up Sarah. "This month has been the most important month of my adult life." "How so?" "Because I learned what it means to put someone else's needs first. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And I learned that taking care of someone you love isn't a sacrifice, it's a privilege. What about your career, your ambitions? They're still important to me. But now I understand that success without family connection is just elaborate loneliness." When it was time for Sarah to return home, David made an announcement that surprised everyone. "Dad, I'm moving back to Portland." "David, you don't need to." "Yes, I do. I've spent the last 10 years building a career 3 states away from my family. This month taught me that the most important work I'll ever do is being your son and Mom's son. I want to be close enough to help care for her on a regular basis." "What about your job?" "I'm negotiating to work remotely, and if that doesn't work out, I'll find something in Portland. There are things more important than the perfect job." After 3 months of watching our children rediscover what it meant to love unconditionally, I knew it was time to reveal the deeper secret I had been keeping. Not just about money, but about our family's history. We gathered for what I called the final family meeting in our living room. Sarah was having a good day cognitively, and I wanted her to be part of this conversation. "Dad, we've all talked, and we want you to know that we understand now what you were trying to teach us," Michael began. "Caring for Mom has changed all of our lives." "We were selfish and short-sighted," Jennifer added. "We thought love was visiting Mom in a facility and making sure she had professional care. But love is being present, being patient, being willing to sacrifice for someone else's well-being." "Dad, I've moved back to Portland," David said. "I want to be part of Mom's care on a regular basis. We all do." "That's wonderful," I said. "But before we plan the future, there's one more thing about our family's past that you need to know." I went to our bedroom and returned with a different folder, one I had never shown anyone, not even Sarah. "Children, the secret about Henry Kowalski's inheritance is only part of the story. There's something else about our family that you've never known." I opened the folder and pulled out documents that told a story none of them had ever heard. Your mother's maiden name was Sarah Goldman, but that wasn't her original name. Sarah took my hand, understanding that I was finally going to reveal the truth we had kept hidden for 45 years. "Dad, what do you mean?" Jennifer asked. "Your mother was born Sarah Goldstein in Poland in 1952. Her parents, Rebecca and Moses Goldstein, were Holocaust survivors who immigrated to the United States when Sarah was 3 years old." The room went completely silent. "But Mom, you never told us," Michael said. "Your grandparents made me promise never to speak about what they had endured," Sarah said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "They wanted to protect you from the pain of that history." I pulled out photographs that none of our children had ever seen, pictures of Rebecca and Moses Goldstein in displaced persons camps after the war, documents from their immigration to America, letters they had written in Yiddish to relatives they were trying to locate. "Your grandmother Rebecca was separated from her entire family during the Holocaust," I continued. "She spent 3 years in concentration camps. Your grandfather Moses lost his parents, his siblings, and his first wife and children. Mom, why didn't you ever tell us this? David asked, tears in his eyes. Because your grandparents wanted you to know love, not loss. They wanted you to understand hope, not horror. But there's something else. I pulled out the final document, Rebecca Goldstein's will, written in 1980, just before she died. Your grandmother left everything she had to your mother. Not money. She had very little of that. But she left her something more valuable. I read from Rebecca's will. To my beloved daughter Sarah, I leave you the most important lesson of my life, that family is everything. When everything else is taken away, your home, your possessions, your freedom, family is what sustains you. Care for each other, never abandon each other, never take for granted the blessing of being together. Sarah was crying now, remembering her mother's words. That's why your father's test was so important to me, Sarah said to our children. When you were ready to put me in a facility, it felt like you were abandoning the most sacred principle my mother taught me. That family never gives up on family. Jennifer was sobbing. Mum, we didn't know. We didn't understand. Now you do, I said. And now you understand why the money was never the real test. The real test was whether you would honor the lesson your great-grandmother Rebecca learned in the darkest period of human history. That family is everything. Dad, there's more to this story, isn't there? Michael asked, studying the documents. Yes. Your grandmother Rebecca died in 1980, the same year Henry Kowalski left me his inheritance. I never told any of you this, but Rebecca and Henry knew each other. What? David said. How is that possible? Henry Kowalski was a Polish immigrant who came to America after World War I. He never married, never had children, but he had helped Jewish families escape Poland in the early days of the war. One of those families was the Goldsteins. The silence in the room was profound as our children processed this information. Henry left me his inheritance not just because I was kind to him, but because he knew I was married to Sarah Goldstein. He had been looking for Rebecca and Moses for 40 years, trying to find out if they had survived the war. So when Henry left you the money, Jennifer began, he was completing a circle. He was ensuring that the daughter of people he had tried to save would be taken care of. His inheritance wasn't random kindness to a mechanic. It was a sacred trust to care for Rebecca Goldstein's family. Sarah squeezed my hand. That's why we could never spend that money selfishly. It came with the responsibility to honor both Henry's kindness and my mother's sacrifice. And that's why, I concluded, when you were ready to abandon your mother to institutional care, it felt like a betrayal not just of her, but of 3 generations of family sacrifice and survival. Our children sat in stunned silence, processing a family history they had never known existed. Dad, Michael finally said, we didn't just fail you and Mom. We failed our great-grandmother Rebecca and Henry and everyone who sacrificed to make our family possible. But you didn't fail permanently, Sarah said. You learned. You grew. You chose love over convenience. That's what matters now. What happens next? Jennifer asked. What happens next is that you continue choosing love over convenience every day for the rest of your lives, I said. And you pass that lesson on to your own children. 6 months after our final family meeting, our house had been transformed into what I can only describe as a center of family life. Sarah's condition had continued to progress, but instead of facing it alone, we were facing it together as a family. Michael had moved his law practice to Portland and was working from our house 3 days a week, managing Sarah's medical appointments and insurance matters while spending quality time with his mother. Jennifer had relocated her family to Portland as well, bringing our grandchildren into daily contact with Sarah. The children had learned to help with their grandmother's care in age-appropriate ways, and Sarah had found renewed purpose in being an active grandmother. David had taken a position with a Portland tech company and was living in an apartment just 10 minutes away. He came for dinner 3 nights a week and had become Sarah's primary companion for outings and activities she could still enjoy. Robert, Sarah said to me one evening, as we sat in our living room surrounded by the sounds of family. Jennifer's kids doing homework at the kitchen table. Michael reviewing legal documents while keeping one ear on the conversation. David helping Emma with a science project. This is what my mother dreamed of when she came to America. What's that, my love? A family that chooses to be together, not because they have to, but because they want to. The changes in our children had been profound and lasting. Michael had learned that success meant more than billable hours and professional recognition. Jennifer had discovered that the most important lessons she could teach her children weren't about achievement, but about compassion. David had found that innovation and problem-solving could be applied to human needs, not just technological challenges. But the most important change was in their relationship with Sarah. They no longer saw her MS as a burden to be managed, but as a challenge to be faced together as a family. "Dad, I want to tell you something," Jennifer said one day as she was helping Sarah with her physical therapy exercises. "This year of caring for Mom has been the hardest and most rewarding year of my life." "How so?" "Because it taught me that love isn't just a feeling. It's a decision you make every day to put someone else's needs before your own. And when you make that decision consistently, it changes who you are." Our grandchildren had been perhaps the most natural caregivers of all. They had quickly adapted to their grandmother's changing needs and had found ways to include her in their activities, regardless of her physical limitations. "Grandma can't walk very well anymore," Sophie, Jennifer's youngest, explained to a friend who was visiting, "but she gives the best hugs and tells the best stories, and she always has time to listen to whatever's important to you." 6 months after the revelation of our family history, I made a decision that I had been considering for some time. "Sarah, how would you feel about using some of Henry's inheritance to establish a foundation?" "What kind of foundation?" "One that helps families care for relatives with progressive diseases, support for caregivers, resources for families who want to keep their loved ones at home, advocacy for policies that support family caregiving." Sarah's eyes lit up with more enthusiasm than I had seen since her diagnosis. "Robert, that would be perfect. We could help other families learn what our children learned, that caring for each other is not a burden, but a privilege." The Rebecca Goldstein Henry Kowalski Family Care Foundation was established 6 months later. Our children served on the board, and the foundation's mission was simple: to support families in caring for their loved ones with dignity, love, and hope. "Dad, this foundation feels like the completion of a circle," David observed during our first board meeting. Great-grandmother Rebecca's lesson about family caring for family, Henry's generosity in caring for strangers, your patience in teaching us what love really means. It all comes together in helping other families. As I write this, 2 years after Sarah's diagnosis, she is still with us. Her condition has progressed, and there are difficult days. But she is surrounded by love, cared for by family, and experiencing the deep satisfaction of knowing that her children have learned the most important lesson of all, that love is not conditional on convenience. "Robert," Sarah said to me last week during one of her lucid moments, "do you remember when we were young and used to talk about what kind of legacy we wanted to leave our children?" "I remember. I think we succeeded, not because we left them money, but because we taught them how to love. Our children visit every day. Our grandchildren do their homework at our kitchen table. Our house is filled with the sounds of family life, sometimes chaotic, always loving. The son who refused to care for his sick mother discovered that caring for her was the most important thing he would ever do. All 3 of our children learned that the measure of a life is not what you achieve for yourself, but what you sacrifice for others." And Sarah? Sarah is surrounded by love, dignity, and the knowledge that she succeeded in the most important job of her life, raising children who understand that family is everything. The tears that everyone shed were not tears of sadness, but tears of recognition that love, real love, is not about convenience or comfort. Love is about staying, caring, and choosing each other every day, regardless of the circumstances. That's the legacy we're leaving our children, and that's the legacy they'll pass on to theirs. This story reminds us that family bonds are not measured by convenience, but by our willingness to sacrifice for each other when times are hardest. Robert and Sarah Mitchell's journey through MS became a testament to the truth that love is not a feeling, but a choice, made daily, tested by hardship, and strengthened by commitment. Sometimes the greatest inheritance we can leave our children is not money, but the understanding that caring for each other is life's highest calling.